Hello, my name's Mark Melichuk. I'm a reporter with the Regina Leader Post, and I'm joined by our political columnist, Murray Mandrick. How are you doing, Murray?
I'm doing well. Isolated, but well.
Yeah, well, I hear that. Yeah, are you starting to get a little stir crazy yet?
I have two teenagers, so I've been stir crazy for a while, and they're not helping, but they're generally good kids. And we're like everybody else, you're just trying to make the best of it and trying to get a bit of a laugh out of everything that's going on in our lives right now. My daughter cut my son's hair the other day, which was pretty hilarious.
Or when are you getting a haircut?
That'll be up to my daughter. And the real answer is if it's up to my daughter, it'll be never.
Well, back to the topic at hand. I think what I kind of wanted to talk about was obviously we can't really record. People might have normally seen you on our Why You Should Care videos. Like a lot of people, we're working from home right now, so that's why you're hearing us instead of seeing us. Um, but I kind of wanted to get your take on what you think about how the Saskatchewan government has been doing handling this crisis. Like, what's kind of your overall thoughts on how they've been doing? I mean, it's such an unprecedented situation, but I mean, we still got to do our job and evaluate the government, I guess. But like, what do you think about how they've been doing so far?
I need to answer that in two phases because the first phase was abysmal, and that phase was when they were still talking about holding a spring election. That was about 2 weeks ago, really. They basically kept on the notion that this wasn't something to be taken seriously. They didn't sound like they had a plan, and by evidence of the document that came out yesterday, it appears they really didn't. All of a sudden, something kicked in about a week or two ago, really 2 weeks ago, and we're into a whole other phase where they have been proactive. They have been smart about their messaging in terms of what the public needs to do. They're taking it very, very seriously. It's a completely different way and a completely different approach than I've seen from this government in general, and Scott Moe in particular, because he's always been driven by political messaging: the carbon tax, the carbon tax, the carbon tax. I doubt he's uttered those words in the past 2 weeks. He is taking a more realistic, appropriate approach to the time that we are now in. It's very good to see. There's still a lot of things to be doing a lot better, as I think we're going to get into in a moment. But in terms of the second phase, much, much improved from the first phase, which had us headed towards a huge disaster.
What at this point right now do you think they could be doing better?
Well, what I think they could be doing is being a little bit more inclusive. They don't need to be getting into silly fights with the city of Regina and Mayor Michael Fougere over who has the best regulations and restrictions on crowd gatherings. You can work it out. You can work it out privately. What we don't need right now is the whole society, and I don't want to speak in big broad terms because it tends to distract from what really needs to be done. But we don't need to hear our politicians squabbling, because you know what happens? People hear that and they think it's business as usual. It's just more crap that we're getting from city governments and provincial governments, and oh, look what they're fighting over now. No, it's not that. We need basically to have a unified message that people can follow. Included in that would obviously be the opposition leader. Obviously that's unprecedented because we live in an parliamentary system where the only time things get done is if one side in the majority votes one way and the other side in the minority votes the other. Maybe through that you get some level of silly little amendments here, there, and everywhere, but generally it's through adversarial politics. We have to think about a totally different way of doing things, at least for now. And that includes being more cooperative, being more inclusive, including ideas in from the opposition. The problem right now is they're not built for that. They're built for being a conservative government running Saskatchewan. So the first place they go to, let's do something to fix businesses and help them. Obviously that's something that has to be done. And I think the next thing that I'm thinking about writing about is how Well, we don't necessarily have to be Donald Trump. We have to seriously consider what this is doing to the economy and how, in a province like Saskatchewan, driven by small business, we can't afford to see small business and other things shut down and going out of business, and we need to have some level of compromise for that. Unfortunately for the Sask party, that's where their heads are always at, and that's the only place they can go. So in this particular case, it probably makes sense to have a Ryan Miley NDP leader included in the conversation, where their emphasis seems to be totally the opposite most days. It's on social service issues. It's on collective decision making as to what's best for a group as a whole, as opposed to individual businesses, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I'm speaking in broad general terms. No government or governing party or party functions completely that way, but that just tends to be the mindset from where they're going. It's more than interesting that we got an emergency response plan for business, but we don't have an emergency response plan for social needs. And we're seeing Doug Ford and Jason Kenney in Alberta, Doug Ford in Ontario, Jason Kenney in Alberta, basically offering those notions and ideas and putting them forward. Why aren't we seeing that from Scott Moe? Well, I think because they're not quite out of that mode yet. But you know what? I think they're getting there. I think it's starting to dawn on them that the magnitude of this is such that they do have to find a different way to govern.
I'm just kind of wondering, as someone who's been covering politics for a long time, how has this changed? How has this whole situation even changed the basic way you cover politics?
Well, besides the fact we're speaking on the phone right now and nobody's going to be writing in about how badly dressed I am, a lot of things. Almost in the same way that it's changing for politicians, market's changing for me. Here's my job. I basically critique government, and that puts me in some weird netherworld where I'm not really the opposition or even aligned with them, but whomever is the opposition of the day. And understand, I've been doing this for 30 plus years, so I've seen a lot of different oppositions of various stripes. But you're always kind of more inclined to look at the critique of what the government is doing wrong, and that makes sense. If you're dealing with smaller issues than we're dealing with today about how much money is being spent, how we could more efficiently do this, whether politicians are giving themselves raises or not, or trying to sneak in this, that, and the other thing, or whether they're trying to do something that's politically advantageous. Yeah, you do that. And you do that because oppositions aren't even allowed to spend money in our parliamentary system. That's the sole purview of government. You can't even address in a private member's bill anything that spends so much as a dime. That's the way our system works. Well, right now, our system isn't built for what we're encountering right now. We need kind of emergency funding. The ledge had to be shut down. The Saskatchewan Legislative Assembly, prior to presentation of a budget, was shut down because of COVID-19 and the fact that they just could not, under the circumstances, in a safe way, conduct themselves in a chamber where you don't sit 6 feet apart. You sit side by side with your seatmate. That's how things have changed dramatically. So from my perspective, I think I've had to change in terms of how you look at how government covers things. I'm kind of sad to see that there's way too many people out there. And by way too many, I don't mean a majority. I don't even mean, a big minority. I'm really, I guess, still talking about a small few, but a really important small few that just don't get it, that think that they can basically go on and critique what's going on in our world right now under the template of Scott Moe isn't doing very well, and he didn't do this well 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, and we have to keep beating him up on that to win political points because my team needs to win these political points, etc. Or those who basically conversely write in and say, you've never had anything good to say about the government, so any kind of mild criticism of they should be doing this better or they should be doing that better needs to be seen from the lens of, once again, the media is politically attacking the government. Right now, no one has time for that crap. and those people that are going to be looking at the world from strictly the partisan perspective are being left so far behind right now. It's to the point where they're just not even relevant. I had one guy screaming at me, swearing at me on Twitter last night. Basically, the World Health Organization is a conspiratorial body that's out to make profits out of this particular thing, and we shouldn't necessarily be believing what they say. And you know what inspired that? I tweeted Arthur White Crummey's story, basically saying that the government has this plan to basically deal with as many as 9,000 to 15,000 deaths in this province if we ever get to the point of the worst case scenario, so to speak, where 300,000 people in this province get COVID-19. He was upset that we'd even cover that, and somehow this was all part of the world WHO's conspiracy over taking over whatever. Nobody has time for that goddamn stupidity right now. People need to stop doing that and actually, shut up and listen. Wash your hands. Don't touch doorknobs. Don't touch your face. Pretty simple.
I just want to zero in a little more personally on Scott Moe. Like, I mean, I can't imagine he could have he couldn't have imagined dealing with anything like this when he first became premier. Like, it's such a staggering kind of situation to have to deal with. Like, just him specifically, how do you feel like he's been dealing with this?
Yeah, well, who the hell could? Like, I know I've been doing this for a while, and I've never seen a scenario like this. Have you ever seen a scenario where there's nothing else in the news but one story? It's just, even during elections, you don't get that. Even during disasters, you kind of don't really get that. It's an excellent question as to how he's been doing it, because I've seen a bit of a change in him. I think it started about last Friday. Again, Arthur asked him one of those really simple, brilliant questions, and I wrote about it in one of my columns about how it just stopped him dead in his tracks. He just asked him something simply like, "How are you feeling?" Like, not, how are you feeling physically, in terms of what everyone's scared of, which is sort of getting this virus, etc. But how are you dealing with the pressure? And he offered a really hesitant answer that was something to the effect, well, this is kind of all about all of us, as opposed to, and that's not Scott Moe. Scott Moe is the guy that's on constant message track that relates immediately to his talking points, which are usually the carbon tax is bad, we have a problem here, etc., etc. He stopped and he paused and seriously considered what he needed to say, what he should say, and maybe how, in a bit of self-reflection, how he really was feeling at that particular moment. And I found that to be stunning from the guy I've watched as premier for 2 years right now, who is always on track, works really hard, but tends to work really hard at the political game. Right now, I think he's feeling like a lot of us. I think he's feeling scared. I think he's feeling overwhelmed, even more so than us, because the decisions that he is making right now can literally affect lives. I think he sees the enormity of the situation that he is. And to be honest with you, Mark, I think in many ways it's probably making him a better premier at this particular moment, because it is that trial by fire, that adversity that everybody has to go through in life, and certainly in politics, to get better. In his particular case, maybe it's a little too much fire, but I think in many ways after the first 2 weeks, and as I talked about, there was 2 phases to this, but after the first 2 weeks, I think he's really, in some ways, rose to the occasion, as has Ryan Miley, who I think is absolutely shone in this particular situation.
Well, I think we've probably talked for enough time. I think that should be good. Thanks for taking the time to do this, Murray.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate it. So, I think we've got it. So again, that was Murray Mandryk, the political columnist with the Regina Leader Post. We're going to be doing some more of these kind of discussions with our reporters as time goes on. Like we said earlier, we're in unprecedented times where we're not all in the newsroom right now. We can't pull everybody into a studio for an interview right now, so we have to do things remotely. For news on the coronavirus and news in general on what's going on in Saskatchewan right now and in Regina, you can head to leaderpost.com. You can also find us in print on the newsstands, and you can find us as well on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for listening. Bye.